This video then, I'm going to be addressing this whole concept of love, and the video I made yesterday, whereby I was speaking about certain facets of love. Now that video is this one here, and I put facetiously, why do silly people say that their feelings of love and compassion emanate from the heart? And I went through some of the myriad of reasons as to why feelings of love and compassion or anything do not actually emanate from the heart. It's a fantasy. It stems from archaic assumptions from people like Aristotle and Plato and any number of person that was thinking before the advent of any level of science or neurology or deep philosophical investigation. And so, look, holding that silly little icon of a symmetrical red shape, which has become known as the heart, well, that's nothing like what the heart looks like. And if you want to investigate where that comes from, then you'll end up back with Saint Valentine. Saint Valentine's Day? Yes, well, apparently it's sort of begun with him, but doubtless it didn't. Doubtless these sort of things, you know, sort of accumulated through time over continents, because there's nothing really new under the sun, and the morphogenetic fields sort of bring about um, a realization or a creation of certain things in lots of places. And we can see this for a prime example with Darwin, with his Origin of Species. And then the other guy was Alfred Wallace, who created almost the exact same thing at the exact same time. And then we look at language. Well, are we to suppose that Caucasian created language before the Africans or the Chinese or the Mongolians or any other creed on the planet? Or did it all come around sort of spontaneously at a very, very similar time? Yes. And so, anyway, but the origin of this heart is mainly attributed to Saint Valentine, because around that sort of period, um, you know, roses have always been something, flowers, that you present to someone that you love. And red roses have seemed to have really, been the major sort of thing. And of course, since the advent of St. Valentine, then you'd send 12 red roses, or at least one red rose, which was symbolic of the 12. And you know what does all this stuff mean? I would speculate that 12 red roses was something to do with the 12 apostles, and the color of the flower being red was something to do with the blood of Jesus. And so, what are you sending? You're sending some sort of symbol of love and sacrifice to someone that you feel strongly about. Now, I've never ever heard of anything in relation to that, but that's just how my mind puts things together. 12 is a very, very powerful number, and it's a powerful number because there are 12 constellations, and that's why you've got 12 apostles with Jesus, because the whole Jesus thing was premised on cosmology. And so those of you that know a little bit about that will know exactly what I'm saying is true, as far as truth goes. Now, that video has 108 views, 13 comments, and 7 thumbs up. And it appears to me that, you see, this is the percentage, the 63. So therefore, if it's 63%, then one would think that there were 3 thumbs down. Well, 3 thumbs down is nothing to lose sleep over, is it? But I would have thought the engagement would have been much stronger if people wanted to fight for it. But evidently, no one wanted to fight for it. And so I would think most of you, maybe reluctantly, are in agreement with me when I'm decrying the fantasy of, people proclaiming that they're living from the heart and, feeling from the heart and the Palladians, come to save us, or Jesus is going to save us, and all this stuff. Ain't nobody saving nobody. It's all preposterous to even contemplate the magnitude of what people are saying. Other entities living in another dimension, caring for us and overlooking us and loving us, and oh goodness me, when you look at the world and you look at mythology, well, there's very little what we could call love in relation to any of that stuff. The most prominent emotion that you will see is terror, fear, and evil. And when we start out in the book of Genesis, well, it starts from evil, it just gets worse and worse throughout the whole of the Old Testament. And then with the New Testament, it doesn't convey the human beings in a good light. It really doesn't. And then when you got this one man, even just if he was a bloke that studied a bit of Eastern mythology and mysticism, and he was intelligent and he had something to say, well, it was human beings who he was proclaiming, should love one another, which killed him. It just doesn't look good, does it? And I can't jump on this fantasy bandwagon of love because everywhere I look for it, I can't find it, people. And so when you delve deeply into the philosophy of love, it's very, very obscure. And mostly, if you've got poets writing about love, it's all fluffy, this and the other. The poets are fantasists. And so there's nothing to see there. There's no truth there. If you look towards science, well, science will tell you absolutely categorically that love is just a creation of neurons in the brain, and the body will interpret them, or consciousness will interpret them however it deems fit, and we all interpret things differently. And how do we interpret things differently? Why do we interpret things differently? Well, it's heavily premised in our constitution as human beings, our culture, our personal development, all of the hardships or not, depending on the life we've lived. All these things will have a deep rooted effect on us and colour our world as far as what we think is, things like love and hate. And so, look, in my instance, some of you will be getting wind of, why I'm like I am, because I'm not shy about speaking about it. But if you have had someone who was supposed to have loved you, and you have a natural bond in relation to a child and a mother, and then that mother decides that she doesn't want to live anymore, and she leaves 4 very young babies behind. Well, when you grow up, having had that experience, you're going to be questioning things, and so you're going to be looking into, well, what is it to be a parent? What is it to be a human being? What is it to have a bond with a child? What is this love thing supposed to be? And you can see that all these avenues don't lead very far. It's all very much a mystery that can't be comprehended, but there's a residue of feelings in relation to these things, a certain distrust, embitterment, along with all different sorts of other, human emotions. The insecurity, the loss of, well, the loss really, the loss. If can you imagine, people? How many of you can really imagine? How many of you have lost a parent when you was a baby? Because if you haven't, you can't really imagine. You can't. You can get thinking in your head about it, but you could never feel that emotion. You would never feel how deeply and profoundly that affected you. And so it's a very stark introduction into reality. And then when you start to look for love and you go through life and you've heard about love, and maybe you're tentatively starting to feel another bond with another person, there's going to be a good level of insecurity about that, because that life is fleeting. You know that fickle emotions like love are fleeting, and it just stands to reason that you're not really going to believe in it. You're not really going to be fully invested in it. And one of the reasons why you can't be fully invested in it is because as soon as you start to feel bonded and needy in relation to somebody or something, you have to know at the back of your mind that that thing isn't permanent. And so that thing potentially is going to be taken away at the drop of a hat any time. And so, in my estimation, that seriously taints whatever this love is supposed to give you, where you're supposed to feel fluffy and free and everything's wonderful. Well, how can everything be wonderful when at the back of your mind you know that life isn't permanent? And so, if you start reading Buddhism, then Buddhism will tell you don't be attached to anything, because if you are remotely attached to anything, then you are going to suffer. And so, if you want to protect yourself, then you don't get attached to anything. And people could say, oh, that's sad. Well, I don't think it's any more sad than when you are really attached to someone and then maybe they die and then they are ripped away from you. I think that's fucking sad, to be honest, people. And so I think the only people that are protecting their notion of love and thinking that it's sad if you don't love or you don't extend yourself into that fantasy, I'm thinking it's those people who haven't lived. You haven't fucking lived, people. You haven't lost. Because if you had, then I can't help thinking that you'd have some sort of allegiance with how I think and feel. And when you look at the etymology of love, like here, the English word love comes from the Old English lufu, which is a descendant of the Proto Germanic word lubo, tracing back to the Proto Indo European root lub, meaning to care or to desire. The root also gives rise to other English words like believe, leave, and leaf, and influenced the Latin word libet, to be pleasing, which eventually led to the English word libido, which is your sex drive. And so, when you look at the etymology of anything, of course, it all gets very, very vague. And what really does anything mean ultimately? Well, words just mean other words, don't they? Which is instantiated here. And so, if we go down, um, related words, believe. Well, goodness me, believe is related to love. This word is related because belief originally meant to hold dear or to give leave to, connecting it to the idea of holding something in high esteem. Okay, then leave, the word leave, as in to take one's leave, is also connected as it is derived from the Proto Germanic word for permission, which came from the same root. Libido, the Latin word libet, to be pleasing, is a relative of the root word, and its descendant libido was borrowed into English. So, look, if we look at love and then we look at libido, for instance, well, that's sex drive. And so that's a lust and it's a needy thing, isn't it? And so when you have sex with someone that you hold in high regard, then you have a need, don't you? You want it constantly. And then there's a threat that that may be taken away from you, or maybe there's a jealousy that somebody else will be taking that, or the person that you are getting it from may give it to somebody else, and so insecurity comes about, and then all other forms of negative emotions, and so you've got this attraction and this love and this desire, but also it's coupled with fear. Everything's coupled with fear, people, because fear is the opposite of love. If you let yourself go into the fantasy and wonderful beauty and all that, well, you're going to fear losing it. It's a natural thing. And so, in my estimation, I've never considered that the pursuit of love has any real value. One philosopher once wrote that it is better not to have loved than to have loved and lost, because the pain of losing is tremendous. It really is. And people could say, well, you've never had the experience of being in love. Well, when you are in love, and I was in love with the mother of my daughter. It was a very, very deep and bonding relationship, but it was so immensely sad just to watch it slip away slowly over years. And it's like holding a fistful of dry sand. It doesn't matter how fast you hold on to it, the sand is going to be falling out of the fingers. And that's a phenomenon, isn't it? There won't be a single grain left in your hand. If you hold it like this and your hand is perfectly dry and the sand is dry, every grain of sand's going to fall out of your palm. And that's what love is like. And I don't think I could find any level of acceptance of believing otherwise. Because I just don't think anyone that's going to be defending that is really thinking about it or has real deep experience. Because if you have deep experience, then you would have been tainted by the opposite of love, which is abject terror of its loss. And so that's just a little bit of where I'm coming from. And the mother of my daughter used to describe our relationship like two peas in a pod. And, us being one. And, lots of speak is that, when you enter into a deep relationship, then the two become one. It's like your souls amalgamate. And so, well, there's another very good reason not to do it, because what you do is you give away half of yourself to that other person, and that other person then is at liberty to do with it whatever they so desire, and very often it ends tragically, doesn't it? And so never give yourself away, not even an ounce. Always keep 100% of yourself. And then we hear about the new sort of relationship where people are free. Oh, just be free, open relationships, and this. Don't become attached to it. When you're together, you can enjoy each other's relationship, but there's no parameters, because the parameters are going to cause all these different sorts of issues. How many people could really care for someone and then allow that person to go and have relationships with other people, and then maybe the next day come back to your bed? How many people are strong enough to do that if they really do feel? I think probably people bordering on psychopaths and narcissists could do that because they don't really care. So people, when they've got open relationships, well, it seems to me that their lust and their desire and their will to do whatever they want is vastly stronger than any care that they've got for their partner. And so I think that will be quite plain to see. I mean, people like Will Smith, open relationship. Well, I mean, you're wandering around all over the place, and you're having all these different relationships. And for instance, if you're both together, him and his girlfriend, they're both together, they're out at a meal, and then there's another woman or guy come onto you've always got to be thinking, does my partner want to fuck them? Is that who my partner's going to fuck next? How embarrassing is that going to be for me when, the person knows that they can have, a great time with someone I'm deeply caring for? No, it doesn't work, people. It'll work if you treat your partner like a whore or like a commodity that you'd pick up in a brothel. That would work then. Because you know well, she or he just open, for that level of whatever is going on. I had many relationships with pay girls throughout the years, and I found them very conducive simply because of that, simply because there was no attachment and there was never going to be any emotional attachment because they were professional in doing what they did. And I found that very emancipating. And so I had lots of these girls, particularly kind of like in Bulgaria or in Africa. You'd have a relationship with one, and then another night you'd have a relationship with another one of them, and then you go back to the first one, and all these different sorts of things. And there was just an acceptance that we were just enjoying each other's bodies or whatever else you can enjoy about the human being, and there's no level of attachment, and that was a beautiful thing, really a wonderful thing. And when I was living in Africa for 3 years, I discovered that that's how Africans live. For the greater part, they don't have any bonding with anyone in particular because they've worked out that it's too painful. And, African men in particular are very promiscuous. There isn't the constraints like you've got in European countries or what you'd call a first world country. They live much more free, and they don't have this attachment and the feeling of obligation, which stems from the dullness of the church. Why should we be bonded by rules which come out of the deathly coldness of an empty church? No, I found the way the Africans live was very warm, much more congenial than the way we live in the West, because we're so uptight in the West, and sex is such a big deal. In Africa, it's not a big deal. Everywhere you go, you're going to have, people just offering you sex. You could be in a restaurant, you could be in a bank, you could be in a hospital, you could be in the police station, and you're going to get offered. They give you their number and say, call me, we'll go and have some fun. Wow. Yeah, it's incredible. It's so emancipating. It's freeing. You walk into a police station and there's a black female officer, and you start talking to her a little bit, but she doesn't seem to have any interest in what your issue is. She's looking at you, she finds you attractive, and she's hitting on you. And then you're trying to offset her hitting on you while she fell out of form, and you try to get some assistance. And then the only thing she's interested in is not solving any fucking crime or anything like that. Is come to fuck you later. Wow. Uh, Listen, people, I know lots of you are really, really naive, and you're bigoted in your thoughts, and you're mind controlled and all these different sorts of things. And you're fantasists because you have a fantasy about a heart being a beautiful, symmetrical thing when it's not. It's probably the most ugliest of the human organs, to be quite frank. And then you imbue within it all sorts of miraculous and wonderful things. And it's like Jesus was love and this, that, and the other. When you look at love, like I say, you just look here and it just turns into all different sorts of things. It turns into belief, it turns into leaving. actually leaving. And so that sounds very fitting when you're talking about love. Well, it isn't permanent. There's always going to be leaving involved. And then, of course, it's the libido, which is mostly the thing that people would call love, because it's an attachment, it's a need. And then people get addicted to the need, and then they start to project onto it that it's something other than what it is, because they want to instill in the other person that they are really cared for over and above just the satisfaction that the other person gets from enjoying their body. I'm just not a believer, people. I'm not a believer. I'm too long in the tooth for all of that nonsense. And what page was I on? What's it say?
Life could have been a very, very improbable event because it only had to happen once. And therefore, we are potentially allowed to postulate something very unlikely, something very implausible. I find that quite an interesting point, actually.
Yes.
I mean, if you take it.
So you got Richard Dawkins, a very, very eminent, respected biologist, wrote lots of books, the God Delusion and The Selfish Gene and different sorts of things like that. Then you've got Alex O'Connor, an up-and-coming intellectual who's an atheist. And so if people are believing in Jesus and love, well, here's a couple of people that absolutely refute that. And why are they doing that? Is because they're intelligent and they've thought about things very, very deeply and profoundly, and they've educated themselves into literature, and they've read the nonsense of the scripture, and they've discovered that the vast majority in it is in actual fact evil, and there's no way that any rational person could candy coat it. It's fucking preposterous, and yet so many millions just can't see the evil, particularly in the Old Testament. And they can't see the fantasy in the New Testament of loving thy neighbor, love God with all your heart, and love thy neighbor like you love yourself. That was Jesus' two commandments. Well, both of them are completely impossible. Who is this fucking evil God that slaughtered all his people and this, that, and the other? And love thy neighbor, really? Oh, I don't think that's a good footing to live your life by, to be honest. It just falls down so massively. And the only way people will pull the wool over their own eyes in relation to this is they conjure up a fantasy that they want to feel loved, they want to feel secured, they want to feel all gooey, because life is so terrible in its reality. Your partner will fuck your best friend or your fucking mum or your dad, and people do die, kill themselves, or what have you, and then they'll just up and leave at the drop of a hat. This is going on all the time. And so anyone that desperately crying out for this love is a complete and utter fantasist. Why can't you just be rational people, look at the world in a rational application, and say to yourself, well, there's things that I could enjoy, fleetingly, doubtless, and there's things that I wouldn't enjoy. That's life, But no, people want the cake and they want to eat it. They want everything to be fluffy and all to be love. And the aliens are coming to save us all. And Jesus, he's going to save us. When we die, we've got to wait till we die, because he ain't saving you in any shape or form whilst you're alive. You can go and be a murderous, raping, fucking bastard, and ain't no Jesus saving you. I'm telling you now. But according to the Apostle Paul, or the sycophant Paul, then all you need to do is just believe in Jesus, and that's all forgotten. Really? Well, so there's lots of people that say, well, you can be the devil incarnate. You literally can, according to Paul in the New Testament. You can be the devil incarnate, and then just before you die, hopefully you get the opportunity, you just pretend to believe in Jesus, and then your slate's wiped clean. Oh, people just don't know anything, I think. And then when people do, this is why I'm I have the greatest respect for thinking people because they know where it's coming from. And if people sit before them, if anyone sat before them, they would rip them to fucking shreds talking about their fantasy of love and, the God of the Old Testament was the benevolent God and Jesus is going to save you. And oh, goodness me. It just doesn't stand up anywhere outside your fantasy, people. And this is where I'm coming from with love. And when we look at love, over and above the etymology, we're looking for some sort of idea of what this nonsense is all being about. And we just end up going round and round in circles because if we looked in a dictionary what love meant, which I'm going to do now, let's just put not the etymology, but let's just put love um, in English meaning. Okay, let's see what we've got here. An intense feeling of deep affection, a great interest and pleasure in something, feel deep affection for someone, like or enjoy very much. Well, okay, like or enjoy very much. Well, that's very different to having an intense feeling of deep affection. Now, let's just take the first one. If we have a deep, intense feeling of affection, um, we're very fond of someone, and of course this varies dramatically, doesn't it? We could have this in relation to our children, and we could have this maybe in relation to our partner. But I think the deep feeling of affection uh, wanes over time. I don't think it gets any deeper. I think it becomes more and more shallow as we get older and we really start to fade away and detest that person that we once had a deep affection for. Because I'm pretty sure that the intense feeling of deep affection would have come from a relationship whereby you are getting something. You are being satiated. You are getting this great sex and you're getting this devotion and you're getting this relationship with a partner that doesn't have eyes for anyone else. And you're so embroiled in this oneness. Yeah, but that doesn't last, does it? And then eyes start to wander and the bodies start to sag and the sex gets less and less frequent and more boring and predictable. And so I'm pretty sure that what was once an intense feeling of deep affection ends up just being something that you kind of remember and you have a little bit of respect for the person that you're with, and it's kind of like, well, you know, I'm too old now to go doing it with anybody else, and so you just hang around with one partner. And she cooks a decent Sunday lunch, and she keeps the fucking toilet clean. Or he goes out to work, at least he gets out the fucking air, and he goes and gets a few quid, and we can go on holiday and or whatever, this sort of thing. Feel deep affection for someone. Well, we've just done that one. Great interest in pleasure in something. Okay, so we get to the libido, don't we? The libido. It's the whole sex thing, a pleasure from having someone's body to enjoy. I think we've all been there, and I think on lots of occasions it's much more exciting than having the deep affection for someone, because if you have a deep affection for someone, then there's so many things you probably don't feel like you could do in the bedroom. Whereas if you don't have this deep affection, oh, the love and you're cuddling and you're stroking, because the cuddling and the stroking takes away the animalistic thing for the bedroom, doesn't it? In my experience, it does in any case. Whereas when you don't have a deep love and affection, and you're just using someone someone for sex, well, you have great sex, don't you? And so that's another good reason why we shouldn't have this deep affection for anyone, because it kills the activity in the bedroom. Like or enjoy very much. Yeah, okay. I love chocolate. I love walking in the forest. I love swimming. The essence of love is starting to slip away, isn't it? What is the full meaning of love in English? Let's see what it says here. Love is an emotion involving strong attraction. Look, love isn't just one emotion. It most certainly isn't one emotion. You people don't know what the fuck you're talking about. How can one thing only be one thing? We live in a paradoxical cosmos. Everything is always so deeply rooted and connected with its opposite. And so love is a situation which is equally bound with fear. That's most certainly what it is. And if anybody doesn't feel the underlying fear of the loss and the demise of this thing that's so precious, they are not feeling love. And this is what I'm stating. I don't think most people really have the capacity to feel love like I once did. Because I felt it so powerfully, so absolutely. I was head over heels with the mother of my daughter, and we just used to stare into each other's eyes this far away, and we'd see oceans in each other's eyes, and we'd just have tears streaming down our face at that oneness of that connection, that cosmic connection that we had. So I don't doubt that there's something that we can feel, but I just look at the ramifications and the etymology of it, and all the other words and emotions which are conjoined with it. And so the love, yeah, you can have fleeting moments of it where you lose yourself when you're so naive. I couldn't ever be there again. I could never look into the eyes of a woman and lose myself. There's too much water under my bridge for me to do that. And so, love is for the naive. And that's one of the things I'm expressing. And, lots of people, it seems, can be 50, 60 years old and still be absolutely naive because they haven't learned a single fucking thing about the lives that they've led. They just, want to be fantasists, and they've got this, kind of like evolutionary attribute whereby they can push all of the reality of the world out of their forefront of their consciousness, and the forefront of their consciousness is then projected onto a fantasy, and so then they live that fantasy, they live in the bubble, you see. What's the true meaning of love? Love, an emotional characterized by strong feelings of affection for other arising out of kinship, companionship, admiration, or benevolence. Well, I don't, look, let's have a look where this love probably stemmed from with evolution. When you've got copulating partners, and then you've got like a female human being, absolutely 1000% dependent on the male to provide food for the mother so she can feed the baby in the initial stages of when a baby is born, when the baby is so very, very young and fragile. She can't be running around with a fucking club in her hand, beating on fucking rhinoceroses' heads or whatever, completely impractical. So therefore, they would need to have this bonding with a stable partner. And so the stable partner was an evolutionary thing which bonded them together. So the child bonded them together, and they had this deep rooted evolutionary protection mechanism within them. And I can speak firsthand of this because the moment I had a child, all of a sudden I changed and something was born in me with this massive devotion and protection. And the only time in my life where I knew that I would absolutely die to protect this small thing. And so that's what was the evolutionary bonding, which was very, very purposeful, and that's why species, such as ourselves, we get along and we're successful. And then, as we become more evolved and more intellectual, then we start to put words on these emotions, and then we get carried away and we think the word is the thing instead of what actually is going on in a genetic way, in an evolutionary way, in a deeply dependent way. We forget all about that, and we just think it's all nice and fluffy, and we've got silly words, and then we give silly flowers, and we give silly symmetrical hearts, and all this sort of thing, when in actual fact what's going on is something deeply evolutionary and animalistic. And what I can say about love is that there's one person that I would die for in an instant, and that hasn't changed in 35 years. And of course, that's my daughter. I can honestly say that I don't love anybody else. I'm like, this, no. No, I just don't. There isn't another single family member which I would even come close to dying for. And so that says it all, doesn't it? And so if you think you love someone, there's the litmus test. Would you die for them? Would you consider that losing them would be effectively like losing your own life, your own will to live? So therefore, you would rather die than them. And if that's the case, then you love someone. And you are so genetically and evolutionary bonded through that cosmic facet, which will be difficult really to surmise with words, which just mean other fucking words. So anyway, people, I've given you enough to chew on and to contemplate for the 1 in 100 that does do that. Significant to notice, as I mentioned, that there was only 2 people that commented on this video of any magnitude. Now let's just go and have a look at what the comments were. And so this one here was just having fun, and so that's typically Jason, always having a laugh, not taking life too serious. Now this person here, Dylan, who wrote a very profound comment, and I'm going to read that in a bit. And love and compassion comes from the penis. I'll prove it. Well, thanks, Daro. I've pretty well just been saying that, haven't I? That's the first time I heard that comment. And then Kevin, he says thank you, and then Mandy, who put a video down of some woman drinking chocolate. And so my conversation with Mandy is where some of this stems from. Okay, and that's it. So let me go back now and just read the only comment of any substance. Now, this guy's been watching me a long time, and he's got a channel, and I looked at his channel, and it seems that we've got quite a few things in common. He's a musician. He plays the piano exceptionally well. He's interested in human psychology and personal growth and all that sort of thing. Martial arts, and that's just a few things I've derived from watching a few of his videos. And so we were scheduled to talk, but as he says here, he pulled out. Now, he says, yo, Aaron, my guy, I know I never contacted you back to have that call we were planning, I let the fear of being misunderstood get to me. Well, everybody is misunderstood. You're not alone there. So you've got to get over the fact that you're not alone, and nobody understands anyone really. As I have said before, I would rather not waste anyone's time by being on your channel without having a clear and effective intellectual foundation to convey whatever it is I think that I'm onto. Yes, and that's a good policy. And I say to people, don't be coming on my channel and just expecting me to do all the work, and you not having thought about anything. For goodness sakes, do yourself a favour and at least write some things down and propose a particular subject that you're passionate about and you know something and you can actually hold a conversation with. Otherwise it's all me, isn't it? Me. And if people want to listen to me, then they can listen to me talking to AI rather than listening to me talking to a human that can't articulate themselves. He continues, so don't lose all hope yet. One day I will be ready enough to have a deep conversation about love with you. Don't start with your bullshit now, calling me a loser or a sensitive cunt and whatnot, ha. Though maybe I am, but if that would be true, then your lack of patience, love, would certainly not help me in any direct way at all, though indirectly it could if I used your lack of empathy as a way to transform the negative feelings which you might bring about in my heart and mind, soul, by feeling in my body, partly chest, and through observing my mind to find where I might be missing the logic of why I actually am worthy of having my opinion without being judged, whether right or wrong. Then it says, don't deny that you judge, man, and why I am worthy of living just as I am. However, I am always, I thought that in every second of this video, you were lacking awareness of what love actually means. Now, let me just go back because there's some bits I want to cover because it's a lengthy comment. And it says, if I exhibit lack of empathy, then the lack of empathy may be a transformation or lead to some sort of transformation of negative feelings. And you see, look, if we get practical, I'm practical, and I don't, I'm not going to be going, oh yeah, oh right, yes, I understand. If someone tells me that they're feeling from the heart, like you've seen in the previous video, I'm not going to be going, oh yeah, I understand. No, I don't. If I don't understand, I'm going to say, no, I don't understand. Please, can you help me to understand? And then if I discover that asking that question, the person that proclaims to have that doesn't actually understand anything that they're saying about themselves, then I think, well, what's going on here? I think I'm just obliterating some delusions. Now, here's the thing. I was watching an interview last night with another PhD scientist, professor, this, that, and the other. All these people, they're the only ones, it seems, that can articulate anything. And this guy been working 40 years on a certain something. Yeah, maybe it takes that long. I've been working all my life on something as well. And so maybe you guys, you're half my age and you're still formulating things. But he was saying that the great difficulty the vast majority of people have, because we're so vastly varied, is actually putting into words, articulating the feelings or intuitions that they have. Because we can all ask a person what love is, and then they would have an idea of what love is, because they would have a remembered feeling, an emotion that which they could call upon, and they could say, well, yeah, it was that feeling. But if they was asked to articulate that, well, they wouldn't be able to. because it's a very, very difficult thing. But poets have had a go at this, and a few philosophers have had a go at it through time. And I'm doing my best to investigate it. And so, seeing as we're all different and we're all made of different stuff, in that we've had different experiences, and we're completely imbued with biases and social norms and propaganda and fictions and fantasies and all these different sorts of things. And our brains work very, very differently, and we feel very differently. Some people are real shrinking violets, and they just want the whole world to be fluffy because they're terrified of everybody and everything. And then you got people like me, true warrior, which, I don't lend myself to fear. If fear presents itself to me, I'm going to face it off straight away. And I do this even in my dreams. I've had dreams which you would consider to be nightmares, and I've had monsters and demons, put their face in front of mine and try and intimidate me with all their evil. And I go, yeah, you think that's a fucking war face? And I'm like, and we're both doing this, and then that thing fucks off. And then I wake up and I go, what the fuck was going on there? I find it astounding, and I'm really, really proud of myself that even in my dreams, my spirit is an absolute fucking warrior that will face off any monster. Even if I don't know the ability of this monster, I ain't running. I ain't looking away. I'm looking straight into its fucking eyes, and I'm calling it out. And when you do this, people, there isn't a single monster or demon that's ever going to remain. When you face your fears, you'll discover that they're only fears, they're only fictions. And if there is ever a monster which you will confront in the so-called reality, if you adopt that same sort of strength, the vast majority of times you're going to overcome that. And so I would advise people to always think and act like a warrior and be a warrior deep down. And so, don't start with your bullshit, calling me a loser or sensitive cunt and whatnot. Well, I mean, look, I've never called anyone a loser or sensitive cunt face to face if they come to speak with me. But I may be alluding to something similar, which is what you've got to expect. If you come to me and you say, I know love's real, and I go, oh, okay, well, okay, you've got the mic, and then you go, what? And you go on. You're so convinced that love is real. Fuck me. You must have, a massive amount to say about it. And then if you don't have, I'm gonna go. Well, it doesn't sound very real. I can't hear how real it sounds. Actually, no, you're not convincing me. Look, if you are gonna state a claim, then you must have a hypothesis, or you must have some evidence. And if you don't, you just better go away. You better go away and come back when you have. That's what I'm saying. Don't be coming to me without your own experience or hypothesis, or having something logically irrefutable, or at least a very good attempt at it. And so if you do sit before me and you haven't got your shit together, well, you're going to expect that I'm going to pull you to pieces. And if you consider that I'm calling you a cunt and demeaning you and taking away your right to have your opinion, look, everyone's got their right to have their opinion, and everybody else has their right to fucking contest their opinion or question the opinion. And that's what I'm going to do. And that's what I've asked you to do forever. Come and contest mine. Come and question mine. Come and state yours, and we'll make a comparison of mine, and then we'll leave it to the vote, because at the end of the day, the chances are we're not going to convince each other that we're wrong, because we're pretty firmly seated in our own discoveries of what it is to be a human being. I've got 62 years under my fucking belt, global travel, and a whole bunch of fucking things that I can use to back up what I'm speaking about. What have you got? That's what I'm saying. What the fuck have you got? That's why you don't come forward, because you don't have anything. And then it's got here, if I use your lack of empathy. as a way to transform the negative feelings which you might bring about in my heart. Well, we've been through this. You don't have any feelings in your fucking heart. And if you don't want to believe me, then, every scientist on the fucking planet is going to tell you the same thing. And so you might want to, start investigating what you're actually talking about. And then when you talk about soul, do you know what the soul is? Have you investigated what the soul is? Because it seems to me hardly anybody actually knows what the soul is either. As if you want to come and speak to me what I think the soul is, then you're free to do that. And in my book, for those of you that read my book, I speak about what the ego is. I speak about what the soul is. I speak about what the spirit is. I speak about what the self is or isn't. And so if you want to educate yourselves, then read my fucking book, you idiots. Okay. So it says here, I actually am worthy of having my opinion without being judged. Well, do you think that just because you have an opinion, then you are exempt from being judged? Well, you're misguided, aren't you? Nobody is exempt from being judged, and nobody should be exempt from being judged. And anybody that wants exemption from judgment is a liberalist, fucking faggot, leftist, like the sort of people that supported Biden and Kamala Harris, because they want to pretend that the world's all fluffy and everyone's all equal, because they are so degenerative and they don't like anyone being superior to them in any shape or form. So they want to bring the whole fucking world down to a festering cesspool of fucking mediocrity. Well, some people aren't standing for that, and thank fuck. And so, yes, you're going to be judged. And when Jesus says, judge not lest ye be judged, well, if you don't want to be fucking judged, then don't judge. But if you're not afraid of being judged like a real man or woman isn't, then you will be judged and you will welcome people to judge you. You see, this whole thing about Jesus not fucking judging, it's just for little fucking shit faces who are shrinking violet fucking turds who can't stand being told someone else's opinion, like you're a fat fuck, you're an ugly fuck, you're a stupid twat, or anything like that. And if you don't think you're fat, look in the fucking mirror. And if you don't think you're stupid, then read this book and see if you fucking understand it, or have a decent conversation with someone that is intelligent. No, I'm not protecting your bullshit. I'm not protecting your bullshit. I'm going to lay your bullshit before you at your fucking feet, whether you like it or not. And those of you that aren't up for that, then you won't be coming for a chat with me, because you're not real. You're not strong enough. You live in a fantasy world. You wouldn't go before Alex O'Connor. You wouldn't go before Richard Dawkins. You wouldn't go before anyone that's prepared to call bullshit bullshit. Okay, so let's read this last bit. I thought that in every second of this video you were lacking awareness of what love actually means. Really? You don't think that I articulated a decent fucking argument that love doesn't actually mean anything? Try and narrow it down yourself. Do a bit of Google research, read a bit of philosophy, look into your own heart, your own fantasy realm. Because when you're looking supposedly into your heart, you'll ask yourself, well, where are you looking into that from? And it'll turn out that it's your fucking mind. And so then when you're feeling this and you're feeling that, where does that come from? It comes from your fucking mind. And so then you'll start to realize, well, actually nothing comes from the fucking heart. All I am doing is projecting shit onto my heart, which doesn't have any reality. And so, you're saying I'm lacking awareness of what love is. Absolutely. If anyone knows what love is, I know what love is or could be proposed as. But what I'm saying is for the vast majority of my discourse is that love isn't worth the fucking hassle. It really isn't. To lose yourself and to give yourself over and to become subject to somebody else's whims and to become weak with that. No, love isn't for the strong. I'm telling you now. It isn't for the strong. Because if you do love someone, then you are always you're like Achilles with his weak point, with his Achilles tendon. You know where he got shot, pinned to the ground, and that's where he met his demise. That was his weak point, and love's going to be people's weak point. You ain't never going to get no strength out of that. So but I'm realizing I'm writing this that I am unable to say it well enough over text. So yeah, I better get ready to hop on a call. But until then, I'll just leave you with this main opinion I have of this video. So, love, I think, is something only weak people live with. No. So, love, you think it is something only weak people live with. The weak, I mean people, as you say, who are naive, wishful thinkers, and who think life is some sort of cute, magical fairy tale dream. Well, I think love is an expression of neediness, because if you don't need anybody, you will not most certainly give half of your power to somebody else for them to do whatever they fucking want. You are making a compromise which is vastly stupid. You meet someone and then you proclaim to love them, and then you give them half of your fucking power. You become devoted to them, and then one day they can fuck your mother, your father, or you fucking chip in Timbuktu. And then how are you going to feel about that? You're going to feel absolutely ridiculous. You're going to feel abused beyond measure. Why would you want to do that? Because you're so desperate to have that fluffy thing. I ain't desperate to have that fluffy thing. I'm keeping my fucking power, motherfuckers. So get your head around that logic. It's irrefutable. And while many of those people might be like that on the cost of seeing the reality which actually appears to be in front of them, there are others who see this potential of a beautiful magical world. I see the beautiful magical world. It doesn't entail me giving anything away. I bask in the beautiful magical world. I know what cosmic love is. I know what the absolute freedom of love is, because it's unconstrained. The cosmos doesn't want anything from me. And so when it does want something from me, it will take this body, of which I've got no control of. And so you're misconstruing what I'm saying here, because what I'm saying and what I'm feeling runs so fucking deep, the vast majority of people can't comprehend it because they've never experienced it. There are others who see the potential of a beautiful magical world without losing touch with the current state of the world. Okay, so the current state of the world, you lose touch with it. Well, okay, I accept that I've lost touch with a certain facet of the world, and that's the human being, because I don't need them in any emotional way. I'm very utilitarian about human beings. If they have a use, then I will use them. Other than that, I'm not interested. Those are the people who are able to bring heaven to earth. Because they see life not with ignorance, but with awareness. Well, I live in heaven every single day, as long as I ain't getting fucked with by the pink ape. They themselves are already a manifestation of heaven in the body. Sooner or later, everything around them gets infected or purified by their heavenly presence. The way they think, talk, feel, and walk is the direct expression of a wiser, stronger, lighter, and higher way of living, or way of loving, better said, because living is loving and loving is living. We only decide how fully we do that, and this is how I believe it applies to you. I think you may have sacrificed a more full sense of love and awareness for an egregore which feeds on you more intellectually, feeds on you being more intellectually knowledgeable. A broken, hurt, and afraid part so deeply hidden within you, buried under layers and layers of knowledge, that you have partly begun to mistake knowledge for experience. Well, I've had the experience, and I've done the weights and measures, mate. I've done the weights and measures, and I've equated through my logic and rationale and my reasoning that I don't want to have that thing with a human being or feel it for a human being. I can't feel it for anyone who I'm not really bonded with. I think that's just ridiculous, and I can't imagine. I'm like Captain Spock as far as that goes. I absolutely cannot imagine how I would feel this love, which is this deep affection and affinity with somebody else, like love thy neighbor. I just think that's a complete and utter fantasy. I think it's propaganda, and I think if you look for it in your fucking heart and you try to find an instantiation of that, you wouldn't find one, because that would entail you giving somebody else every single thing you possess. It would entail you giving all of your time and effort and money and devotion if you really did love somebody on that level. No, you can't do that. The most you're ever going to do is throw someone a fucking quid when they're sitting in a doorway on a cold night. Tell me anyone that's really fucking gone to lengths in relation to this love business. I can give you an instantiation. Now, last night, my daughter's grandmother died, and my daughter's mother has been an absolutely exceptional carer. And truly, I can say that if there is love to be exhibited, I've seen it in the devotion to her and her mother on an absolute daily basis forever. And so that love and devotion, deeply felt, does exist. But that was with a daughter and a mother. And I can see where, it very easily exists with family members, close family members. Yeah. But other people, because look, a daughter and the daughter's never going to become not a daughter, and the mother's never going to become not a mother. And so there's always going to be that genetic bond there. That is the deep intensity of the familial love, when you have blood and when you've grown up and when you've been nurtured by, or you've nurtured something, someone, then you have something which is over and above the concept of love. It's just something deeply ingrained in genetics. And so I could even discount logically that the mother of my daughter wasn't feeling love, but just a deep a bond, like an owing, like a payback, maybe driven by guilt or sadness or shame if she didn't do it, or all these different other connotations which come into place in our magical mystery tour of a life experience. And specifically in your case, I think that partly what keeps this egregore alive is your idea that knowledge and intelligence comes from specific sources, like the ways in which you yourself are used to gather knowledge. Books, books, books. I gather knowledge from a whole array of portals from my life experience, mate. Now, you should be abreast of that. I'm always telling you about my life experience. And what I do is I have a life experience and I read books and I make comparisons and I see if I'm barking up the wrong tree or if I've missed something or if other genius people have said the same thing, they've discovered the same thing. That's why I read books, books, books. And it's much more beneficial than listening to fucking idiots skipping over the surface of any fucking subject on YouTube. Which, of course, I do also because I have so much time. I have 24 hours a day to do it. And so, therefore, I do select people who I have the greatest respect for and I listen to them. And I'm listening to their perspectives on things. How can a person like you, how can a person like you who meditates and have so many mystical experiences even begin to think of such nonsense? What, that books is knowledge, or books is intelligence? Well, I mean, you'll have to ask people like Plato, Aristotle, and all the likes of those. Haven't you gotten enough from nothingness to know that the highest form of knowledge can only be found there? Knowledge beyond the intellectual brain, knowledge as of a feeling, knowledge as love. You know what I'm saying. Look, I felt this love, and I've described it so many times. Uh, I've spoken about it in my book, and I've spoken about it in hundreds of fucking videos. There is a feeling that the human being can experience when we are absolutely free, when we don't have any connection or any attachment to anything. Then the fundamental state of the human being seems to me to be this thing that could be described as love, because it feels like bliss. It feels like complete and utter contentment. You don't want for anything. You don't judge nothing. You just are in a beautiful state. That's the natural condition of the human mind and the human body when it's absolutely healthy. Yes, and so. People are often are misconstruing through language how they may have felt from time to time. And so I know what that is, and I know where to get it, and I am basking in it every single day. I have the greatest of connection and this feeling of contentment and no fear at all attributed to the world. The world could take me tomorrow. The world could be showered with a meteorite, or aliens could come down and gob us all up. I don't have a single atom of fear in my body pertaining to any of that stuff. And so when you are free from all that, there's no connotations, there's no attachment, and so there's no fear. And so if that's what you want to call as love, then you make up your own opinion. But I don't see why I should call it love any more than non-attachment, or any more than pure contentment, or any more than bliss, or any more than the nothingness of consciousness. Or indeed, I can just call it consciousness. And so love is just a fucking concept. It's just a word, and it's vastly overrated as far as I can see. So if any of you can dispute all of that or any of it with a good solid foundation, well, you're welcome to try. Not even try. It's not a competition, people. Just get some sort of idea where you are on all of this stuff. These videos. I get it that they're vastly intimidating because you've never really thought about things. You haven't read extensively. You've never even looked up the etymology of love or any fucking word, probably. And so, of course, you're going to be intimidated. Of course, you're going to be out of your depth if you speak with someone like me. And so maybe that's something you want to think about, and maybe you might want to order a couple of books here and there, and start being a bit more serious about your education instead of just thinking that you know stuff, because thinking that you just know stuff is for fantasists. Have a good day.